As far as developing the sensibility of like when in production, knowing when to just step back and let it be the thing, that's huge. I think I do run into producers from time to time that it seems like they, after every take or everything that happens, they want to inject an idea, which is okay. But sometimes it's so much more useful to just be like, this is amazing.
Welcome to the Hidden City Podcast. I'm Grant.
And I'm Doug, and we're here to share some of the incredible stories and people from Oak Cliff that you might not know.
We're going to sit down with some of the visionaries, craftsmen, and business owners who have shaped Oak Cliff into what it is today.
Oak Cliff is on the south bank of the Trinity River, a few miles south of downtown Dallas. While technically it was part of Dallas, it was its own city for a long time, and it still has that independent spirit.
We'll dive into the history and the spirit of this place, exploring the different challenges and successes that defined it.
This is The Hidden City, a podcast about the people and the stories that make Oak Cliff extraordinary. Welcome to this episode of the Hidden City Podcast. Today we have with us Alex Bhore, who is a musician, music collaborator, and runs Elmwood Recording here in Oak Cliff. Alex, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to get started and just kind of Elmwood Recording. Tell us about this place. It's in downtown Elmwood. It's got this mystique about it. It's got, I know, a history, and it's also where you make music and produce, I believe, too. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Tell us about the space.
The space, I think, started, people ask me this question sometimes, and I don't know the exact year it was started. I think it was around 2007, 2008. Elmwood Recording was started by John Congleton and Stuart Sykes, two extremely prolific and amazing record producers. John Congleton ended up being my mentor and still is my friend and my landlord there now, now that he's living in Los Angeles. But it's a recording studio that I do work out of, that a lot of people have done work out of these days. It's kind of just me there. And my assistant Eric sometimes, and a few other people come in to do stuff occasionally. But yeah, it's just like a fully functioning recording studio and creative space. And it's been there for a while, and it's I'm lucky to say it's still here.
Yeah,
in 2020, almost 5. So
that's pretty sweet. Yeah, no, it seems like when bands and musicians are coming to town, it's definitely one of the places to go. From what I can tell,
awesome
it seems
yeah. Stuart and John have both done like a million huge records you've heard, and heard of, and et cetera. And They parted ways at some point a few years into the process of having that studio. I came into the picture then and started assisting John from time to time and started doing my own work there. And yeah, it's John especially. I mean, people, the wildest people were flying here all the time just to come make their records.
I'm so curious because Oak Cliff, like I remember,
it's a real you name it kind of a list. I mean, a few that I was lucky to work on a little. Nelly Furtado, Goldfrapp, John Grant, but I mean, John's very well known for making records with St. Vincent, and, the Future Islands, and Swans, and it's a truly like epic, like hundreds of things you've heard of type of list. He's so busy, but yeah, they and especially he created quite a reputation for the place that I'm lucky to have the space to use.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I just love it. It just feels like such a little hidden gem. I mean, in terms of like, you would never suspect that is happening over here in Elmwood, but it is. That's cool. Yeah,
we keep it kind of quiet.
Yeah,
we
there's
try
probably
to.
a reason to.
But there's a bunch, and maybe a lot of it is just because people work there, and it's a bit of a cave that you just sort of step into, and at the end of the day or whatever, you come out and come back into this world. And I mean, there is a lot more going on in the neighborhood than there ever has been, with other businesses getting started, like Olmo Market and Sloan City Coffee, and all these great businesses.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So there's more to like do if you want to take a break.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
it's a bit of it's a place to make art. Hopefully, and we do other stuff there too, of course. But like that's kind of what it's made for.
Man, that's awesome. So what some of those earlier records that you got to work with John on, like what was that kind of process like? It sounds like you just jumped into this with him, or
at some point when him and Stuart decided to go different ways, and Stuart moved down to Austin and has his own studio there and is killing it.
Awesome.
The studio wasn't being used all the time, not because John wasn't busy, but because John was so like busy being gone in other places, making records abroad, wherever. And the place was just not getting used as much as it should. So he talked to a bunch of different people, including me, about like kind of the role that I eventually took on. And I bugged him for a year on and off when I would see him here and there, and just like, hey, like, any thoughts on maybe taking someone on to like use the place and help you, maybe, and he was like, I'll get back to you, and he finally did. And I think there was like a cancellation of someone else was supposed to use the studio. Maybe it was one of John's like early mentors. I forget who it was, but a band canceled, like a band from Russia or something. Their visas got like declined or something. And the studio was open. John calls me. He's like, hey, can you fill this time? I have it open. And I happened to be able to. I had some projects going on at the time that I could just move over there that I was doing at like my parents' house.
Nice. Yeah.
At the time.
Just like,
and we did it, and here we are.
Man, that's awesome. I'm also just laughing, like, people coming in from Russia to record in Elmwood. And, like, this is just wild, man.
It is.
It's an amazing scope that you guys have with this thing.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have, been around for some of that stuff, and I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And John rules. It was a real, amazing thing to get to work alongside him.
Was John over here in Oak Cliff?
Yeah. Living over here too, and just fully rooted in the neighborhood. He moved to LA a few years ago.
Okay.
His partner lives there, and she makes movies, and like they both kind of really
thing.
need to be there.
Yeah.
Like it just really, it's the place to be for both of them. So it made total sense to go.
Tell us about This Will Destroy You.
That was a band I played in from 2009 through 2016, and it's how I got to know John, really, because we made our records with him for the most part, and toured together a bit. John's old band, we did a tour together, and that's a bit of how it all segued into the studio stuff happening. But I played in that band. We made some records, did a bunch of touring, got to go to places that bands may never get to go again. A lot of them, and I'm super lucky to have gotten to do all that. And left the band in 2016, and just kind of been focusing on this other recording and composing stuff since then. But it was sick. Yeah.
It's good. It's a great sound. I mean, I feel I found This Will Destroy You via Explosions in the Sky, kind of the Friday Night Lights.
Who Congleton also produces.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
All that stuff. I think they've done every record with John.
No way. Okay,
except for their very, very first one, which is like, people know that record, but it's the one they blew up on.
Okay.
John, that was their first work together.
But
I think they made that record in like 3 days or something crazy.
The Explosions
like
in the Sky.
The first one that really blew up.
The Explosions. Okay. Wow.
Proves that
it's like the
a great band translates.
Yeah.
No kidding, man. That's fast.
You don't have to ever work it. It's like, oh, there it is.
Fully comes fully formed almost.
That's awesome.
All I know is I went and saw them here in Dallas like maybe a year ago, and
really?
just had my face melted off basically
Really?
by the show. I mean, it was so good. Yeah,
cool. Dude, it was like a great sound. And like, I found This Will Destroy You via them, and like, that music's awesome. So that's so cool getting to meet you on that.
Thanks. It was fun to be a part of it. The years I was in the band, like I joined the band right as the band was ready to make a big stylistic shift. So we were kind of just able and allowed sort of to do anything we wanted musically, and
free to do.
So we made 2 records that very much like felt that way, and what a lucky thing to get to be a part of,
Man, that's awesome.
Amazing.
So you toured. You said a comment you said a second ago was interesting. Like, you got to go places that people might not get to go to anymore. What do you mean by that? Like,
played a bunch of shows in Ukraine, in
no
Russia,
way.
or one show in Ukraine, a bunch of shows in Russia,
a
bunch of shows in China.
Wow.
Bands are still going to China for sure. So my statement is a bit inaccurate, but I think because the band was instrumental, and no singing traditionally, it just created less barriers. So we were able to go tour in these kind of places that maybe not a lot of other American bands
that totally makes
Western
sense.
bands get to go to, whatever that means. Yeah.
I mean, that's like, you went to Iceland, saw Sigur Rós, but like that kind of like
that was dope.
mindset where he's like, oh, you don't really, like. It can translate to multiple languages and countries. I could see that, that type of music.
It was a real, and I look back at it really with a lot of like grateful thought. Just it's a real crazy thing to get to go and hang out with people there, and it really reinforces the thing that like there's cool people everywhere.
Dude,
and there's a lot of them everywhere, and that's a pretty important lesson to just have reinforced over and over again.
There's a lot of them in Oak Cliff, though.
I feel that way. I feel that way. Look at walking around. I feel that way. But cool people are everywhere.
Yeah. So talk to us about that transition from being in the band to producing and doing some of this more like collaboration that you're doing now. Yeah. How did you make that transition, and kind of why did you make that transition too?
Well, I was doing production and recording and mixing and stuff, taking it somewhat like pretty seriously for like a while before that, like maybe a decade or so before that. So I was doing both,
cool.
Playing in other bands and then eventually playing in that band. And left that band, like there was a 4-piece and 2 of us left and 2 stayed.
Cool.
The other member, Donovan Jones, he's another Oak Cliff resident, another brilliant music maker. He makes music under the name Black Taffy that I recommend checking out.
For sure. Check it out.
Put on the City podcast playlist.
Play it in Waxbase, maybe. I don't know.
It's extremely listenable music.
Oh, good.
I like it a lot. And I love him. We both left the band at the same time, just because for personal reasons.
Yeah, fair
like
enough.
Not feeling right. And it just kind of made sense to like keep doing what I was doing in music. I think that's if I have any motto, it's just to not give up and just to keep pursuing it. And it was funny though, like that year, 2016, a few months after we quit, the band Congleton told me, he's like, "Hey, I'm moving to LA."
You're like,
I was like, "Oh wow!" All this musical stuff is like super like changing all of a sudden for me, and I just leaned into it and tried to stay busy and tried to just keep it moving. And luckily, John wanted to keep the studio. He owns the building. He wanted to keep it here as a functioning studio. So that's been incredible, and he rules for that and a lot of other reasons. But it just made sense to keep it moving. That's cool.
Today's show is brought to you by Oak Cliff Brewing Co. Are you interested in unwinding and connecting with neighbors over a great beer? Then go visit Oak Cliff Brewing Co. They've got a great tap room with all sorts of great beers on tap. It's a full production brewery here in the heart of Oak Cliff. Visit oakcliffbrewing.com to find out what's on tap right now and where you can find fresh beer made right here in Oak Cliff.
Man, I think it takes such courage to like make and create. And I think like do you find artists, or do they come to you, or like
it's both? I'll reach out and they'll reach out to me sometimes. Cool. I mean, it's both for sure. And I think just that not being afraid to ask has been a big part of me being able to collaborate with a lot of cool people. Nice. Honestly, that's how I got the job at the studio. Really.
Yeah,
so
you're doing it. Yeah, that's awesome. Who are some of those people you've been working with recently, or ones that you're enjoying?
Right.
I'm trying
to think recent, like this year, records have come out by, let me see, Nicole Markson, Laura, Black Tie Dynasty, Van Dam. I'm going to leave some people out of this.
Oh, yeah,
that don't deserve to be left out. Secrecies, a bunch of cool people.
Yeah.
And
we could talk about more of them too, or leave some in show notes. But I think
that's just stuff I've bands I've gotten to record and produce and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Otherwise, I've gotten to I do a lot of work with my friend Teddy Waggy. She's a musical artist and a fashion designer, also based in Oak Cliff.
Cool.
And we're lucky to get to do some music for the permanent art installation Meow Wolf that opened.
Oh, that's awesome.
In Grapevine last year, was it?
Yeah.
And that took up like a bunch of time, kind of making this like 15, 20-minute piece of music, and that was a blast. And we're doing a lot of stuff together coming up in the future too. Cool. So just lots of cool
Meow
people.
Wolf's such a free, speaking of free, environment. I mean, we got to, my wife and I got to go see it in Santa Fe.
Oh, cool.
I guess that was the first one or whatever, but like the Grapevine one, there's people in Tyler Station that have worked on it too. So it's
absolutely.
It's music.
They brought a lot of local artists into it, both visually and musically.
That's awesome.
That was truly like a dream collaborative situation for, I feel like I can only speak for myself, but I feel like a lot of us had a really like positive experience.
I've only heard that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It was great.
That's awesome.
Well, we got to ask you too about the Halo Infinite soundtrack. That seemed like a pretty epic. I mean, obviously a very epic game to be producing music for, but that's a global thing. How did that come about? I mean, what's the story there?
It was wild. In a nutshell, I worked on the music for that game with a few other writers, and basically one of them had a connection to one of the directors of the multiplayer side of the game at that studio at the time. And we had the idea of like making some music on spec for them to be like, hey, what if we did this kind of more like ambient post-rock thing as a, some part of the game? What if we pushed it in that direction? Like just an idea. Yeah. So we made some stuff, sent it to them. They checked it out eventually, got back to us a number of months later, and were like, "This is pretty cool. Like, here's sign an NDA, and here's some footage. Can you make some more stuff with a few requests?" So we made some more stuff, and a lot more time passed. I mean, maybe a year. I don't know how long it was, but like in early 2020, they were like,
"Let's go.
Let's do this." And
Wait,
we're like,
that's so
great,
Dude, early
the world is
2022.
shutting
That's
down,
great.
and that was my 2020 was making all that music. So
Oh,
it was
man.
like March or April to like almost November.
Wow.
I
That's
mean,
perfect
most
timing
of the time.
too. Yeah.
So that kept everything moving. So
So you reached out to them initially.
Yeah, you pitched.
Yeah, you pitched them, and then just
via like a connection that one of the people was lucky to have. It wasn't like we just like
it wasn't a cold call.
Yeah, it wasn't totally a cold call.
Yeah,
That's
but
incredible.
still, you like made the effort to like get something in front of them like that. That's crazy.
And I was fully under the impression that the moment had passed, and it just got the call one day, and it's like, whoa, okay.
What was that process like creating the album or like the music for it? Yeah.
Just a lot of requests of like, okay, here's this mode of the multiplayer. We need these assets, meaning like we need a piece to play when the mode starts. We need a piece to play if you win, or a piece to play if you lose, or like if you capture a flag, or if all these kind of requests that other people ended up integrating into the game. We just made the sounds and the music for it. So it was just a lot of like detail work and intricate stuff. And some of the material was more like song based, and that was more towards the end of the process, and that was fun. But just a lot of specific kind of to-do request type stuff that just tried to kind of keeping it fresh as we went.
Halo has sort of a legacy of like amazing sounds too. So I'm sure stepping into that had to be like kind of, how do we keep that, retain it, but also like improvise off of it?
I'm still surprised that it happened. I mean, it's very different music than the game's kind of ever had, but we played off of a lot of the old school themes here and there as one would, to keep it as much in the realm as we could. But at the same time, it's like, let's just try to push it somewhere and take a chance here. I'm a big fan of artists that take chances, and that situation is not about being an artist. It's about serving the game. But I do believe still in taking chances, and we took one.
Who are some of those artists that when you're like, I know, putting you on the spot, but like, and it can be general inspiration too. But you're like, I love artists that take chances. I think that's so fascinating. Like, who comes to mind? Yeah.
I mean, David Bowie.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean,
I played some David Bowie way too much in the office. I think it was on my Spotify.
Really?
Yeah,
I could go down a list, but it's really like any artist or band or collective, whatever it is that like that just tries to not repeat themselves, but also retains a through line.
Yeah.
That's so artful and interesting to me, and like I feel like it's also extremely hard to achieve. So even if I'm an artist, I love mix a record that I hear and I'm not super into it. If they've had a track record of like going for it, I'll probably check out the one after that, no matter what.
Nice.
And I'll maybe return even to the one that struck me funny, because it might end up being one of my favorites.
Yeah,
I
do feel like an artist that you love, them changing their sound can feel kind of, they're pushing themselves to do something different.
Yeah,
it can feel like, whoa, like you have really. Like I'm thinking of Iron and Wine. Their sound changed a lot. But as I've gone back and listened to some of their newer stuff more and more, I'm like, oh, actually, this is like, I actually really like this too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Great stuff.
Nice. Okay, man, that's awesome. Thinking about Oak Cliff too. I mean, you're so in the music scene. Like, is there stuff that's happening within Oak Cliff from a music perspective? You're like, man, you guys need to know about this as well, or I mean, obviously the Kessler is like a hub of sorts, but
for sure,
I'd love to.
For sure, they're doing their thing over there.
Yeah.
Right near the studio is Slow and Steady Coffee, and they've been throwing shows.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I forget. I'm blanking on the name of the promoter. It starts with a C, and they do a lot of like. You'll on their calendar like a crazy Guatemalan psych band, or like it's very like Latinx focused, and a lot of cool stuff that they're bringing all over town. But they've been doing like a series at Slow and Steady that seems like it's crushing, and it looks like people are like really
enjoying
going.
it.
Yeah, so I know that's going on. There's a lot of artists that call it Cliff home. That's for sure. I mean, it's I find out all the time, like literally every time I almost work with a band or something, it's like, oh, you live here too?
Yeah, that was the
So there's that's built in, that's just great. So I mean, the Texas theater is like I tend, in a lot of the circles I swim in, that's where a lot of us I see a lot of the homies. We're so
Hanging out
lucky
there,
to have
yeah.
that place for a million
Oh,
reasons,
yeah.
and especially
Couldn't agree
musically.
more.
I mean,
Yeah.
the stuff that's going on there musically in conjunction with their film programming is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I feel like people know about it, but let me shout it out again. Like, go there, support it.
Yeah.
We have it. It's here. Use it.
It's special. I mean, what Brock's done there is amazing. And
Crazy.
then
It's
also,
so cool.
I mean, him extending that even to top 10 records too. I
Of
feel
course.
like that whole story
Absolutely.
is like a
So cool.
go get records there. And I mean, they'll do shows at top 10.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
shows
yeah,
are definitely
yeah,
happening
yeah,
at top 10. Like
yeah.
a band I just had in the studio last week, they just played there over the weekend. Like,
Oh, cool.
You know,
Okay.
it's a place where like newer bands can play, and
Yeah.
it's a place where touring bands can come through and play and like have a good reception and turnout. It's
That's
like a
awesome.
comfortable spot. Like we have a lot of these gems here, and it's definitely like
And top 10's
important to support them.
it's like it's pretty old, right? Like it's been there for I'm trying to remember how long, but like
I don't
it's
want
kind
to.
of be
Yeah, I'm not
Someone's
totally
gonna
sure, but
fact
for
check.
sure,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
it's been there a minute.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mark your calendars. If you haven't heard, March 2nd in Oak Cliff, we're going to have the Mardi Gras Parade. It's Sunday, and thousands of people come out for it in line Davis Street. You don't want to miss it. Go to gocliff.org to get some more information, and make sure to follow them on socials as well.
Jumping back to the Elmwood Recording Studio, not only is it like housed so many, top tier musicians for a lot of years now, but it has like kind of an interesting history as a building, right?
Yeah, it was a funeral home. This comes up from time to time while working on stuff, and sometimes it just doesn't come up. And maybe at the end, I'll be like, "Y'all know this was a funeral home," and just bye. But people have credited it as like Elmwood Funeral Home on their records and stuff. And so it was that. I don't know the years of when it was what. It was that. Who knows what went on there. And then it was a realtor, which the sign is still partially on the building. It's kind of falling off.
Amazing.
And then I assume it was nothing for a while, and then it became a studio. But I'm here to say the ghosts are friendly, and I've had no ill experiences with any spirits. They all seem supportive.
They're music fans.
If they're still there, they most likely have to be of some sort. Yeah, a lot of music and music adjacent things have happened in there for sure. So
Man, that's hilarious. It's crazy. It's fun getting to know the stories of all the buildings that are in that downtown Elmwood area.
totally. There's like a triangle of streets right next to the studio that I'm pretty sure was where like the old trolley used to turn around.
Oh, no way.
Like there's these couple of, and you see them around these neighborhoods sometime. But like there's the street the studio is on. There's like another street with that same name, and it's always kind of confusing for people to like map it. But it's
interesting.
via this weird triangle of
Man, that's
what
wild.
I assume was the way the trolley or the train used to turn around.
Yeah, Oak Cliff had like a trolley that would go to all these different kind of nodes or different I mean, Oak Cliff's huge for people who don't know, but like there's lots of neighborhoods, and it would kind of go down Jefferson, and then took a left on, what was it? I would assume Polk. But yeah, that's
Makes
crazy.
sense.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
It's nice. I'm glad that no one's messed with it. It's still just kind of as it was in that way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
It's a great downtown Elmwood's such a great
it's fun
vibe. I mean, it's just, and it continues to grow, which is fun.
There used to be another recording studio over there where
Really?
I'm pretty
Oh, yeah.
sure it's like maybe a yoga place now.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure. It might be.
That's
might be
right. I heard that there was.
I've done work there. Like John and I used to like there'd be bands in town and certain records where we would split up, and like half the band would stay at the studio at Elmwood, and the other half would go with me to the other place, and we'd kind of meet up at the end of the day and consolidate the work. So yeah, it was once like and since I think the 70s that studio was there, so it was like it was very much like a hub of certain music circles, and I mean I wish it was still there. It's always sad to see a studio go, but yeah, Elmwood is definitely it's unrecognizably busy now compared to even a few years ago. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, tell us. Okay, so the recording studio used to be a funeral home, then a realtor. And you've had so many groups come through. Is there any like memorable sessions or times where you're just like, man, this was it? It was right when we were producing this, or we were just memorable in any way.
I've done so many types of things in that studio. Everything we've talked about today, almost I've done there, whether it's composing or even writing records. Like a lot of the This Will Destroy You stuff that we made while now is in that band. We like wrote in that room.
Wow.
All the, a lot of composing stuff, Meow Wolf, all that. So it's sort of just like, not so much memorable sessions, but just like, there's just, something special about being able to look at it and be like, man, like that's the spot for a lot of us around here. And I think it's where a lot of artists feel comfortable too in these parts. And it's so for me, it's a bit hard to narrow down because
Totally.
I promise you, I feel like they're all quite special, and it's not in whoa, look at me kind of a way, but it is, and it feels that way all the time, and it's just the whole situation feels.
You're proud to like have like a thing that people come and make, and you have also obviously made in it, and so just the fact that it exists is memorable. I think is
totally.
Kind of
it's probably not the best answer to that question, but no, for sure. I feel super lucky to be able to provide a place for people that feels comfortable, hopefully, and like a place where they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. Period. And that's it. And that's huge. And the fact that it continues to be so in the era that we're in, where there's less and less recording studios, is we're just lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I feel like with the brewery, we've seen like a lot of different musicians kind of local come through in some ways, and like I just love that there's like someone doing this very like well in the neighborhood, and it's cool to see that happen. I mean, like how do people collaborate with you, or how are ways that people who are starting out start to kind of like think like, hey, Alex is doing this here. This would be fun to learn more about what he's doing and how to connect.
Yeah, you can. I'm on like, I suppose like social media wise, the only real one I'm on is Instagram. So you can find me there, message me there, or even better, you can go to my website, which is just my name, alexbhore.com.
Nice. And
that has my email address on it. And you can just email me directly there too, and send me like demos, or hit me up if you're interested in doing something, and we'll see if it can work out. And I like to try to like work with a broad array of types of artists and music and people and all that. So even if it seems a little bit like maybe out of my wheelhouse, hit me up. Maybe it could be cool.
And
cool.
To play off that question, because I think you're right. There's like a lot of younger artists, or at least like they haven't been recording a lot. Like I imagine that can be an intimidating thing.
Yeah.
What would you like? How would you encourage an artist who's like, hey, never done this before, intimidated by the idea of recording in a studio?
Right.
What would you say to them?
Well, these days people can record themselves pretty easily, like in almost any way, like whether it's just a really simple phone recording or like a little cassette 4-track or a intricate home setup. I would say just prepare as much as you can, work on your stuff as much as you can, try to do everything you can up until the point of like coming to someone like me to like make it something you love.
Yeah.
And I mean, I might hear it and be like, this rules. You should just master it and put it out.
Yeah.
Or I might be like, okay, like what if we like kind of took this and messed with it together and tried to like do a little, like spruce it up or something. Or maybe it's a situation where, a ground up type thing, and we're going to look at that demo as just a demo and make something separate from that. Just make stuff.
Yeah.
Just keep making stuff until you feel like, okay, I've pushed this as far as I can, and like maybe I could use a little help in this way. And I think a studio or someone like me could help.
Yeah.
Because I mean, up until that point, what do you need me for?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that make their own stuff that like it's perfect, and I would be like so scared to even like inject my own like opinion into it. It's like I'm just a fan. Yeah. So I think there's no rules.
Yeah.
And because of that, it can be anything you want it to be. So
there's a artist, like I'd say like a creative thought leader, Austin Kleon down in Austin, Texas, who just talks about this all the time, where he's just like, just continue to make stuff. Like and I'm hearing that from you in this, where it's like for the musicians, like make stuff and then bring it to you. Or I think that's a healthy way to think about it when you're in the creative process.
I think we're lucky, some of us or a lot of us, that make stuff to like, that making stuff thing is what makes us happy. Yeah. And it keeps our days moving and keep feeling quick and good, and it's energizing. Yes. And even if the thing you make sucks, who cares?
It's just creating.
It might, I mean, quite literally, I remember one idea like I made for like initial Halo music. We didn't end up using it, but it ended up being like the spark of like a full movement of like one of the Meow Wolf pieces we did. Oh wow. So sometimes you make stuff that you're like, and then it comes back into your life and you're like, whoa, cool. And then it makes you maybe happy again or something. Yeah. It's like a nice cycle of being able to just be modular with everything and try to just be creative within that creativity.
I work closely with, or actually Grant and I both do, with an illustrator over here. And I've seen that happen in his process where it's like he'll go down this one path for a while and he might make something that he was just like, this was weird, or I'm just like doing this just to do it. And then that becomes like a whole nother spot piece for something else at some point. And so I do think there's like, that happens.
Just getting it out of you and then kind of figuring out, okay, is this something I'm going to use right now or not?
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
And it's just that act of,
yes,
strengthening that muscle, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of like once you start doing that, you get a bit addicted to it.
Sure.
And the feeling that just sitting down and working on something gives you that has no real parameters, maybe even that has just full creative, whatever you want. Like, or with strict parameters, that can be really awesome and strangely liberating too.
Yeah.
But it's all just because it's fun and it makes us feel good. And like, I mean, I'm lucky to say I've been able to like do it as a job in different ways over the years, but it's really just because I love that part of it. That's what keeps me in the game for sure.
Yeah. You were talking earlier, someone coming to you with a project or with like something that they've made and almost being like, I don't know if I want to put my like opinion on this yet or speak into it in some ways. That is such the role of like a producer to an extent too. And so like my question to you is how do you develop that taste, or how because there is such a reputation or responsibility when giving those kind of that advice or that direction. Like how does Alex like develop his taste when he's like doing this and bringing that to the musician?
Well, as far as developing taste, I just listen to and watch and read. I take a lot of stuff in.
Yeah.
And I love that. I try to keep things around that make it easy to do so, whether it's AirPods or a record player or whatever. As far as developing the sensibility of like when in production, knowing when to just step back and let it be the thing, that's huge. I think I do run into producers from time to time that it seems like they, after every take or everything that happens, they want to inject an idea, which is okay. But sometimes it's so much more useful to just be like, this is amazing. I just need to make sure I'm recording. And
let them do their thing to an extent.
There's a lot to production about that. I think that's underrated. And especially when you're working with people who prepare.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just that and letting it be what it's going to be. That's huge, and not overworking it, all that kind of stuff. So that just comes with time and maybe ultimately getting to see other people, like in my case with Congleton, like getting to see him do that a lot with artists. Like, I mean, really just like making it sound great, and then the band rips and it's like, oh, that already sounds cool. I don't have any notes, or like maybe we could do like this kind of intro or something, but you know, sometimes it's that, or sometimes you just need to rip it apart a little bit and kind of rebuild it, and that there's nothing wrong with that either. It doesn't mean like
part of the process.
and it has nothing to do with even like ability or quality. Sometimes that's just what happens. But yeah, it's just a lot of getting to be around it and ultimately getting to be a part of it.
I feel like, you said experience. I feel like some of that's also confidence from you. Because I do think sometimes producers
I'm faking it.
You what? I mean, that's like, is that
what you got to do. You gotta
No,
fake
for
it.
sure,
is
for
this
sure.
not our motto, y'all? Yeah.
I mean, it's the job has its ebbs and flows and ups and downs when it comes to confidence. Trust me. But I do try to make sure that the artist knows I'm confident in them, and that we can build that trust, and that it's something they don't have to worry about, that I'm like in their corner, that I'm there to make it as good as I know how to make it. That's all I know how to do. I might be like totally like on the inside, like cowering in some sort of fear-based position. But sometimes you just gotta step up and do that. And it keeps everyone's head in the game, and it keeps the momentum moving forward, you know?
Yeah. I can't help but think of, is it Rick Rubin?
Oh,
What's he saying?
Yeah.
When he's getting interviewed about like, what is your job? He's like, I have no technical ability, but I have this confidence to describe my taste. And I always thought that was like, oh yeah, it's actually really interesting.
Yeah. It's
All the Rickisms,
a lot of Rickisms.
That was 2024, for a lot of people. No, I think there's something to be said for that, and just trusting your instincts. That's what I take away from that, is like, okay,
sure.
maybe I can't speak for him, but like it seems like he's just like an instincts person,
Yes,
which is a
100%.
huge part of like all of it, I think, and knowing when to trust that, and knowing in my position a lot of the time when to trust the artist's instinct, even if it's counter or like contrary to
you
how I
think.
feel in the moment, because like I'm wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm right and I have a good idea, but like, or not right. Sometimes I just have an idea that keeps the song moving, you know? But not always. And I'm happy to be like, 10 minutes later in that, 10 minutes later in that moment being like, oh wow, that idea like is awesome.
Yeah,
like I never would have thought of it. And like, yes. You know, it's keeping it moving. So
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that was definitely some of the thought behind that is just like, the instincts of this thing, or like even the confidence and some of this, and it could be good and bad. I think but I just appreciate, man, even just getting this opportunity to talk with you is like, there's a humility in this too, where it's not like, hey, I'm the best at all this and come in and see me and I'll make your record kind of thing. It's like, no, I want people to come in and
I mean, I run into people that kind of carry that attitude, and I mean, whatever. For me, I for better or worse, I'm sort of the type that's always like not hating everything I do or something, but just always very like, I hope it's awesome. I'm trying my best
finished.
here. And
it's
like,
finished.
Doing my best that I can, but certainly I'm aware that I'm trying to grow and get better all the time. You know, that's maybe, if anything, what has kept me in music.
Man, that's awesome.
I love it. Well, Alex, keep it up. Yeah. Thank you
Thanks,
for
y'all.
running Elmwood Recording Studio, and it's great to connect with you.
Yeah, man, that was awesome.
You guys too. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Hidden City. We hope you discovered something about Oak Cliff that you didn't know. If you enjoyed the show, I hope you subscribe to it on YouTube and then follow us on any of the podcasting platforms. Also, if you enjoyed it, please share with a friend, and thanks so much for tuning in.